I swear, there are moments in life when you can physically hear your heart cracking. And that night, it sounded louder than the champagne glasses clinking all around me. It was my cousin Lindsay's engagement dinner. One of those over-the-top events where every napkin has gold-embossed lettering, and the waitstaff looks like they just walked off a runway. My mother forced me to attend because, family image and all that. Never mind that I was juggling 2 part-time jobs and trying to raise my 6-year-old son Lucas on my own. Lindsay had it all. The fiancé, the career, the looks, the approval of every breathing human in that room. And I had Lucas. And apparently to them that was something to laugh at. We were halfway through dinner when the real show began. Lindsay stood up to thank everyone for coming, glass in hand, and started making her way around the room, handing out compliments like they were raffle tickets. When she finally reached me, she smirked. I knew that smirk. It was the same one she wore in high school when she used to accidentally spill things on my clothes or whisper rumors in gym class. She tapped her glass again, catching the attention of everyone. I just want to say, she started, her voice syrupy sweet, that I hope I never end up like Emily here, single with a kid. The room exploded into laughter. I felt every breath in that room leave me like I'd been punched in the stomach. My Uncle Brad chimed in from across the table, waving his fork in the air like he was adding to a comedy skit. Men don't want used goods anyway. Even my own mother let out a low chuckle, hiding her mouth behind her wine glass. My throat tightened, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just clenched my jaw and kept my eyes locked on my untouched plate. That's when Ethan, the groom-to-be, stood up so suddenly that his chair nearly toppled over. The laughter died down in waves like ripples fading on water. Ethan, usually the quietest guy in any room, walked around the table until he stood right in front of me. I could feel every pair of eyes burning holes into my skin. He cleared his throat. I think, he said, scanning the room like he was addressing a courtroom, they should all know something. You could hear silverware clinking as people froze mid-bite. I didn't dare move. I didn't dare breathe. Because the way Ethan looked at me, it was like he was standing on the edge of something much, much bigger. And in that moment I knew one thing for sure. This dinner was about to go down in family history. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared up at him like my brain had suddenly forgotten how words worked. Ethan's jaw clenched so tightly I could hear the muscles popping from where I sat. His hands trembled slightly at his sides, but his eyes never left mine. And then he dropped the bomb that shattered the air like glass hitting concrete. 3 years ago, he began, loud enough for every single person in that glittering room to hear. When Lindsay left town for that 3-month internship in Chicago, I was here. With her. He pointed at me. I felt the blood drain from my face so fast I thought I might pass out. Murmurs started to ripple around the table. Someone dropped their fork. Lindsay's smile snapped like a cheap necklace. What the hell are you talking about? She hissed, her voice cracking like a whip across the tension-soaked room. Ethan took a deep breath, shoulders rising and falling like he was about to deliver a sermon no one asked for. She didn't tell any of you, did she? His voice was quieter now but somehow sharper. Of course not. She spent years making sure none of you knew. My mouth was dry. I opened it trying to form words, but Ethan kept going before I could stop him. I wasn't just hanging around while Lindsay was gone. I was with Emily. Every day. Every night. The room buzzed like a live wire. My uncle shifted uncomfortably. My mother actually paled, gripping her wine glass so tight I thought it might shatter. Lindsay shot up from her chair, face blotchy with rage. Liar, she shrieked. You're just trying to embarrass me. Ethan took a step back, turned slightly toward the crowd, and then he pulled out his phone. No one could have prepared me for what happened next. He pressed play on a video. His phone speaker wasn't loud enough for everyone to hear, but somehow the few words that leaked out were enough. It was me. Laughing. Talking. Sitting on the hood of Ethan's car in the middle of the night, wrapped in his jacket. The camera must have been propped up somewhere nearby because I never knew it existed. The footage was time-stamped 3 years ago. I slapped my hand over my mouth, my heart slamming so hard I thought I might faint. Lindsay lunged toward him like she was going to claw the phone out of his hand, but Ethan held it high and looked her dead in the eye. You can humiliate her all you want, Ethan said, voice trembling but steady, but you'll never rewrite the truth. You left Lindsay. And I fell in love with her. Dead silence. I didn't know what hurt more. His words, the disbelief on everyone's faces, or the sting of betrayal curling in my stomach. Because the truth was, he had fallen in love with me. But he never told me. He left just as fast as he showed up back then. No explanation. No closure. Just gone. And I thought I'd imagined the whole thing, or worse, I thought I'd meant nothing to him at all. I thought I'd been discarded. Just like Lindsay said. Lindsay's face contorted into something I can only describe as pure venom. You, she spat, turning to me like she just realized I was still breathing. You were nothing but a mistake. He chose me. The entire table sat frozen, caught between shock and horror. Ethan let out a bitter laugh. Chose you? You showed up at my door drunk and sobbing when your rebound ditched you. You begged me to take you back. And like a damn idiot I did. He glanced at me again, softer this time. But I never stopped thinking about her. The floor might as well have opened up beneath me. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be dragged into whatever this was. But here I was, my entire family watching, judging, whispering. And worst of all, I could feel him watching me like he still meant every word. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. I'm done, I choked out, pushing past the stunned guests. I'm done with all of you. But as I tried to leave, I heard Ethan's voice break behind me, quieter, desperate. Emily, wait. There's something else you need to know. I froze, my hand already gripping my purse. I didn't want to turn around. I shouldn't have turned around. But I did. And what he said next would haunt me for the rest of my life. I turned, fists clenched, ready to shut him down. But his next words knocked the air from my lungs. Lucas, he might be mine. The room collapsed into chaos. Lindsay screamed. My mom gasped like she'd been slapped. My uncle dropped his fork so loudly it echoed. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. No, I whispered, stepping back. No, you're lying. Ethan's face broke. I'm not. I swear. He stepped closer. Do you remember the night before you left town? You told me you were late. I felt my throat closing. I had told him. One night. Scared. Unsure. And when I didn't hear from him again, I assumed he bailed. I convinced myself it wasn't his. I shook my head. You left. You never called. You never cared. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Lindsay showed up the next day, saying she was pregnant. She told me you had moved on. She made me believe there was nothing between us anymore. I almost collapsed. Lindsay, now hysterical, lunged for Ethan, pounding on his chest. You promised me. You said you'd never tell her. I couldn't breathe. I turned and stormed toward the door, shaking. I needed air. I needed to think. Ethan called after me. Let me take a test. Let me know. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew the timing lined up. And part of me had always wondered. I left that night without looking back. But I knew it wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at Lucas through the half-open door. His tiny frame curled under dinosaur sheets, his little hand clutching his favorite stuffed bear. Could Ethan really be his father? I'd convinced myself for 6 years that Lucas's dad was a one-night mistake, someone long gone. But now Ethan's words were burned into my brain. The next day, Ethan showed up at my door. I should have slammed it in his face. But I didn't. I just want the truth, he said softly. If he's mine, I'll take responsibility. If he's not, I'll leave you alone forever. I agreed, because I needed closure too. We scheduled a paternity test that same week. Those days dragged like years. I barely ate, barely spoke. And when the results finally came in, positive. 99.9% positive. My knees buckled. Ethan caught me before I hit the floor. I knew it, he whispered, voice breaking. I pulled away. Why now? Why not then? He looked destroyed. Because I was a coward. I believed Lindsay. I believed the lies because it was easier than facing what I felt for you. Tears burned my eyes. Do you love her? I asked, my voice shaking. His silence told me everything. I don't think I ever did, he finally admitted. I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. Everything had just exploded. My family, Lindsay, the engagement, all of it built on lies. And now Ethan was looking at me like I was the only thing that ever mattered. But there was one thing left to ask. What do you want now, Ethan? He swallowed hard, voice barely a whisper. I want to know my son. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him no. To tell him to leave and never come back. But when I looked into his eyes, all I saw was Lucas's. I hated him for what he'd done. But I couldn't deny the truth anymore. I agreed to let him meet Lucas, but on my terms. The first meeting was quiet. Careful. Ethan sat on the floor holding out a toy truck. Lucas, shy at first, eventually scooted closer and took it. And when Ethan asked, "Can I play too?" Lucas nodded. I watched them from the hallway, biting back tears. The next few weeks were strange. Ethan kept his distance from me but visited Lucas often. No drama. No pushing. But word spread fast. Lindsay showed up at my door shaking with rage. You ruined everything, she shrieked. I stood my ground. No, you did. The night you lied to both of us. She slapped me. Hard. Before I could react, Ethan pulled her back, standing between us. It's over, Lindsay, he said coldly. The wedding's off. Lindsay crumbled to the floor, sobbing. Please don't do this. But Ethan didn't flinch. He turned, took my hand gently, and pulled me inside, locking the door behind us. I stood there shaking, not knowing what the hell this all meant. Emily, he whispered, I don't want to lose you again. I wanted to believe him. But I believed him once before, and it destroyed me. So I gave him the only answer I could. Prove it. Ethan showed up every day after that. Not for me but for Lucas. He played with him, read him bedtime stories, helped with homework. He never crossed a line. Never pushed for more. And it broke me a little more every time. Because the more Lucas smiled, the more I started to believe again. But my guard was still up. Ethan had disappeared once. What if he did it again? One night, he showed up with a manila envelope. I want to show you something, he said. I opened it and pulled out a lease agreement. An apartment. Close by. Signed by him, paid for 6 months in advance. I'm moving out of Lindsay's place, he said. I already did. My heart raced. Why are you showing me this? He ran his hand through his hair, looking scared for the first time. Because I want to earn your trust back. And I'm not doing that from her house. I swallowed hard. And what about Lucas? He took a breath. I don't just want to be his dad. I want to be your partner. I want to fix this. All of it. I felt my walls start to crack. But then I remembered all the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't enough the first time. I shook my head. Ethan. I need more than words. I need time. He nodded, stepping back toward the door. You'll get it, he promised. No pressure. No rushing. I'll wait as long as it takes. And for the first time since that awful dinner. I almost believed him. Word got around fast that Ethan had left Lindsay. And my mother, she wasn't having it. She showed up on my doorstep 2 days later, face twisted with rage. You're disgusting, she hissed. Stealing your cousin's fiancé? Have you no shame? I stood in the doorway, gripping the frame so I didn't slam it in her face. I didn't steal anyone. Lindsay lied to both of us. Mom let out a bitter laugh. You really think anyone's going to believe your side? Single mother. No husband. You're already a joke to this family. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Maybe I am, but at least I'm not a liar. She leaned in ice cold. Mark my words, Emily. You'll regret this. Then she turned and walked away. I closed the door and slid to the floor, shaking. I knew my family would pick Lindsay's side. They always had. I was the black sheep, the embarrassing one they never invited anywhere unless they needed someone to mock. But something had changed. Because for the first time, Ethan stood beside me. And even though I didn't know if I could fully trust him yet, I knew I didn't have to face them alone. Days turned to weeks. Ethan kept showing up, not as a boyfriend, but as a father. Lucas had no idea about the storm swirling around us. All he knew was that Mr. Ethan never missed a game of catch or bedtime story. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't falling again. Then an invitation arrived. Handwritten. From my grandmother. It was for a private family dinner. Just the inner circle. No plus ones. No excuses. The back read, this family needs to be reminded what loyalty looks like. Ethan knew. You don't have to go, he said. But I did. So I showed up. When I walked in, the room fell dead silent. Lindsay sat at the table, smug as ever, surrounded by my parents, uncles, aunts, everyone. I knew exactly what this was. A setup. I sat down, heart pounding. My grandmother stood, clearing her throat. I gathered you all because this family is fractured, she said. And it's time to fix it. I held my breath. Then she looked straight at me. Emily, apologize. The air left my lungs. Apologize for what? I whispered. Lindsay leaned back in her chair, smirking. My fists clenched under the table. I looked around at the faces waiting for me to bow my head. But I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a loud scrape. No. Gasps echoed through the room. I looked right at my grandmother. I'm done apologizing for living my life. And before anyone could stop me, I walked out. I didn't stop until I was outside, breathing in the cold air like I'd just broken out of prison. For the first time in my life. I wasn't scared of them anymore. As I walked toward my car, someone grabbed my wrist. It was Lindsay. You think this is over? She hissed. You think Ethan's gonna stay with you? You'll never be enough for him. I yanked my arm free. I was enough before you lied to him. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. I got in my car without looking back. But I knew this wasn't over. That night, Ethan called. How'd it go? He asked. I paused. I stood up to them. He let out a slow breath. I'm proud of you. The line went quiet for a second. Emily. I don't want to pressure you, he added, but I can't keep living in limbo. I need to know if you'll ever give us a real chance. I closed my eyes, heart pounding. I'd spent years guarding myself. I'd built walls so high I forgot what it felt like to let anyone in. But looking at Lucas sleeping down the hall, I knew I couldn't keep running. So I gave him my answer. Come over tomorrow, I whispered. We need to talk. About everything. And this time, I meant everything. Ethan showed up the next day, nervous as hell. He stood on my porch like he wasn't sure if he should knock or turn around and run. I let him in. We didn't say much at first. We just stood there, like two people waiting for the other to break first. So I did. You really love him, don't you? I whispered, nodding toward Lucas's room. Ethan's face crumpled as he nodded. More than anything. I crossed my arms, holding my breath. And me. He stepped closer, voice cracking. You. Always you. Even when I didn't deserve to say it. Tears blurred my vision. I'm scared, I whispered. You left me once. You believed her lies. He reached out, gently brushing the hair from my face. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I won't do it again. I didn't move. Not until Lucas's tiny voice called from down the hall. Mom? Is Mr. Ethan here? I turned, looking at Ethan one last time. Come on, I whispered. Let's tell him the truth. We walked down the hall together. Sat Lucas down. Told him everything. And when we finished, Ethan opened his arms wide. Lucas ran straight into them. I broke. Completely. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't how I ever imagined life would go. But when Ethan pulled me into that hug too, holding both of us like we were his whole world, I knew something I'd never believed before. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to keep proving my worth. Because I had finally found the family I deserved. And this time, I wasn't letting go.